It's the mid-20th century, and the world is rapidly changing. World War II has just ended, and the world is entering a new conflict, the Cold War. Oh wait, drop the L, I am talking about the Cod War. So two nations find themselves at the center of this peculiar conflict. First is the United Kingdom, a maritime powerhouse with a long history of ruling the waves. Post-World War II, the UK is adjusting to a new world order and being second fiddle to their former colony. But one thing hasn't changed: the British reliance on the seas for sustenance and economic prosperity. British fishing fleets equipped with modern trawlers roam far and wide, casting their nets to bring in bountiful catches from the rich fishing grounds in the northern Atlantic. Then there's Iceland, a small, rugged island nation in the North Atlantic. Fishing for Iceland isn't just a quaint pastime. For Icelanders, a day without fishing is like a day without daylight, confusing and slightly depressing, so just like a day in Birmingham. The waters surrounding Iceland are their most precious resource, brimming with cod, haddock, and other marine life. So we have the stage set for a clash of the titans, if one titan was a bit undersized and the other was having an identity crisis. Here's where the drama starts. The UK's fishing fleets, like a Twitch streamer to a middle school, are getting closer and closer, despite nobody wanting them there. But the British, steeped in a tradition of ruling the waves, and occasionally entire countries, are not the type to care what Iceland thinks. Historical fishing rights is a rallying cry, and let's not forget the sacred dish of fish and chips. In 1956, the dispute heats up when the Icelandic government, spurred by a decision by the International Court of Justice, expands their territorial waters from 3 nautical miles to 4, and prevents British ships from fishing there. The British government mauls about this, so they ban the import of Icelandic fish, which they thought would cripple the Icelandic economy. But instead, Iceland just sold the fish to the Soviet Union to make up for the loss, which in turn freaks out the US. So they end up buying Icelandic fish at a rate of a 12-year-old who just found their mom's credit card buying V-Bucks, which forces the UK to just accept the Icelandic terms for now. Then Iceland 2 years later is just like, you know what, let's make that 12 nautical miles. So the British government consulted its playbook and did what it always does when a smaller nation refuses to share resources, which is sending the Royal Navy. And Iceland, a nation that technically does not even have a military, sends out their Coast Guard vessels, which are significantly smaller and less armed compared to the British naval ships, to start patrolling these new boundaries. Their mission is to enforce the 12-mile limit and kick out any Brits they see in that zone. Icelandic patrol boats and British destroyers face off in a series of incidents with rammings, net cuttings, and a whole lot of icy glares across the waves. These incidents gathered international attention, as you do not usually see NATO allies fighting each other. Well, outside of the Balkans, that is.
Malaka! No, Malaka, bravo, to κατάλαβε. Understand, Malaka? Go fucking good!
Behind the scenes, diplomatic efforts are underway to resolve the dispute. However, negotiations are fraught with national pride and economic interests. The first round of our piscatorial prize fight winds down with a bit of a whimper rather than a bang. In 1961, both sides, probably exhausted from all the sea staring and ship bumping, decide to call a temporary timeout. The UK begrudgingly tipped its naval cap to Iceland's 12-mile limit, but with a catch. They still get to wet their fishing lines in those waters during specific times of the year. It's like being allowed to swim in your neighbor's pool, but only when they are not home. The resolution of the First Cod War in 1961 marked the beginning of a decade-long intermission. During this period, the fishing industry continued to evolve. The increased fishing capacity raised concerns about the sustainability of fish stocks, particularly in the rich but vulnerable waters around Iceland. To Iceland, it is like the UK just released Nikado avocado on their buffet, and all they can do is just watch. The 1960s were also a time when people realized that the environment exists and should be protected, and many studies were coming out showing that cod was being fished at an unsustainable rate. Throughout the 1960s, diplomatic efforts to permanently resolve the fishing rights issue were largely unproductive. As bell-bottoms and disco balls ushered in the early 1970s, the writing was on the wall. Iceland's concerns over its fishing stocks and the pressures of a glowing global market created a very volatile situation. 1972 rolls around, and Iceland does not just move the goalposts, but makes a whole new field by extending their territorial waters from 12 to 50 nautical miles. Of course, the United Kingdom does not like this, as they are already dealing with economic challenges and the decline of their own fishing industry, so they refuse and go the gunboat diplomacy route once again. But wait, there's more. Iceland's declaration doesn't just ruffle British feathers. West Germany and Denmark, who had also been happily fishing in these now off-limits waters, joined the chorus of discontent. As the Second Cod War heats up, the Icelandic Coast Guard, veterans of the previous fishy fray, come back with some new tricks up their sleeves. They're not just relying on their old tactics of playing bumper boats with the British. This time, they've got specialized harpoons designed to do one thing very well: turn British trawling nets into Swiss cheese. It's like David coming back to fight Goliath, but this time he's brought a javelin missile launcher. This aquatic tussle isn't just a local scuffle over fish anymore, it's grabbing international headlines. And the United States and other NATO buddies are watching this unfold like a bad soap opera. Under mounting pressure from their NATO pals, the UK decides it's time to ease off the gas. They agree to back down, but it's more of a strategic retreat than a surrender. A 2-year ceasefire in the Great Fish Battle. Fast forward to the end of the ceasefire, and it's like we've hit the replay button. British ships, presumably having had a nice 2-year fishing holiday, return to the disputed waters. Iceland, not to be outdone, decides if 50 miles was good, 200 is better, and unilaterally extends their fishing limit to a jaw-dropping 200 nautical miles. This move isn't just pushing the envelope, it's sending it via express mail. But for the Third Cod War, Iceland has an ace up its sleeve. They threatened to close a major NATO base in Keflavik, a key strategic asset during the Cold War. This threat brings the issue to a head, leading to intense international negotiations and some nudging from America, who doesn't want to lose their submarine base. Eventually, in June 1976, an agreement is reached, where the UK concedes to Iceland's 200-mile fishing limit, marking a significant victory for Iceland in this David versus Goliath story. The resolution of the Second Cod War actually had a pretty global impact, as it set a precedent for the establishment of exclusive economic zones worldwide, leading to the 1982 United Nations Covenant on the Law of the Sea, which formally recognizes 200 nautical mile EEZs. In a perfect world, the dramatic conclusion of the Cod Wars would have heralded an era where every nation dutifully followed maritime law to the letter. But, as we all know, the real world is more like a messy fish market than a neatly arranged aquarium. While the 200-mile EEZ became a recognized standard, not everyone really likes to follow it. Thanks, China. Now, the Cod Wars surprisingly claimed only 2 casualties: a British fisherman from Grimsby, caught by a towing cable, and an Icelandic engineer who met an untimely end through an accidental electrocution while repairing his ship. However, the bigger picture regarding the fish themselves was not quite as rosy. All the diplomatic maneuvering and extended fishing zones barely put a dent in the relentless pace of overfishing. By 1998, the situation had become so dire that the World Wildlife Foundation felt compelled to place cod on the endangered species list. This was a global wake-up call, leading to limits on cod catches worldwide, a stark reminder that our natural resources are not infinite.